Hello everybody, it's Sarah and today I am back with another review, and that review is of Master of Poisons by Andrea Hairston. And one of the reasons why I decided to do a review for this book, a dedicated review, aside from the fact that I think more people should talk about this on BookTube, because I think it's a very unique story, is because after all one of my goals for 2021 was to review all the adult high fantasy books I am reading during the year that are written by women. And so I have quite a few reviews on the horizon because I read a few of those books within February. Now this review will look a little bit different than my reviews usually do. Usually I do like dedicated parts to negative stuff that I found and positive stuff that I found. However, I think that this won't really work for this book because, as I said, the writing style is very unique and I can see a lot of people really disliking this book because of that reason. However, I also can see a lot of people absolutely loving this book because of that reason. I kind of fell more towards the loving side. So yeah, it just kind of felt weird for me to have a positives, negatives, if I know that, you know, if you read this book, I think it's gonna be very polarizing. Also, this review is, as always, gonna be spoiler free, and I thought about summarizing this book or not. I actually asked the question a bit ago on Twitter whether or not I should summarize books at the very beginning of my reviews. Most people actually said they prefer not to have a summary at the beginning of a review, but I decided that if I have a book that I don't think is very known, I'm still gonna have a summary, and so that's what we're gonna do now. This is, as I said, an adult high fantasy. It is also a standalone and it is African inspired. It is set in this world where the poison desert starts to like take over all the farmland. And that's of course a problem because then people don't have anything to eat anymore. And so we mostly follow the Master of Poisons, who is the king's spy master, and he's sent into exile to find a cure for the poison desert. And yeah, that's the basic gist of the summary. Now, why do I think this book is so unique? Mostly the writing style. This book is written in a way where you don't have a lot of explained. Like, you're very much thrown into the story without a lot of explanations, and there's also a lot of words that are used within the text that aren't native to the English language, that have kind of their roots in a lot of African cultures, but that a lot of English readers wouldn't be familiar with. And even I think a lot of readers from those cultures might be more familiar with those words, but they're not always used in the same way as they would be used, like, in our world, if that makes sense. But why for me personally, I didn't mind it that I was thrown into the story and that I actually, until the very end of the book, I was always a little bit confused. I always felt like I didn't really know what's going on. I felt like I missed a lot of things. But the reason why I didn't mind that is because the writing of this book is just so absolutely beautiful and like unique. I have never read a book that was written in the way that this book was, where the story was told in the way that this story was. And it was very reminiscent for me in a way to a lot of writing that, you know, calls back to oral traditions, and which of course is in a lot of African cultures, in a lot of Black cultures, oral traditions are very important. And so I absolutely loved that aspect, and for me it made the world feel very alive and very lived in. So it made me feel almost more, not like I was reading a traditional high fantasy, but it made me feel like I was reading some old legend or some old mythology, which I love that. A lot of you might know I am very much a fan of retellings, especially retellings who very much like feel traditional. I don't know how else to explain it, and this book just had that, and that was what I probably enjoyed the most, and just, you know, I absolutely loved about this book. I also loved the world building, even though, as I said, I feel like I missed a lot. I really enjoyed the characters. I enjoyed getting to know them very, very slowly and just chapter by chapter getting to know them bit by bit and just seeing their characters grow and change. And then sometimes you had some time jumps and skips where it was suddenly like, okay, I do not know what's going on right now, but just seeing how over the time skip the characters changed, and I felt like that was very well done, because a lot of times when you have time skips within books, unless you explicitly have a character who is growing up, especially with adult characters, it's very hard to, you know, show the reader that some time has changed and that that character changed. However, in this book I had absolutely no trouble at all believing that the characters spent some time, that we just didn't follow them during that time, and that they changed. So I did love that. But yeah, the strong point of this book really is the writing, which again, I think it could also be seen as the weak point, because it can be very confusing and it can be very slow to get into, and I can see people getting discouraged by reading the first few chapters and deciding that it's not for them. However, ultimately, I think it's worth it. I think it's worth reading this book. I think it's worth reading books that aren't written within the Western tradition of storytelling, which this book managed to do magnificently. So yeah, that's why I love this book. And actually I only have one little caveat to say, one thing that I didn't enjoy or that I wish was done differently, although I'm gonna take at least 50%, if not more, of the fault onto my back, because there is a glossary at the end where you could go and, you know, try and find the words that you don't understand, which I don't look at glossaries generally ever. But yeah, there was use of neopronouns within this story, although I don't even know if I want to say neopronouns, because it could very well be that the pronouns used are pronouns that are traditionally used within African cultures. But, you know, not the traditional he, him, she, her, they, them pronouns were used. And it took me a really long time to get that those were neopronouns, because I am not familiar with a lot of neopronouns. And the pronouns within this book were always written in cursive. So to my brain, they didn't register as pronouns, as they would have maybe if they'd just been written normally. But to my brain, I was like, oh yeah, this is something very special to this world. And so yeah, it took me a really long time to get that those words are actually pronouns. So that's a little tidbit, a little, you know, pet peeve that I had in this book. But you know, that's very nitpicky, so not a big issue whatsoever. And yeah, with that said, that was it for this review. If you're either interested in picking up this book, or if you have read it, tell me your thoughts down in the not description box, comments below. If you enjoyed this video, maybe think about giving me a thumbs up and also maybe subscribing. All the links to my social media are in the description box down below, so go and check those out. All the links to my book club of Queens, Witches and Valkyries, where I read one adult high fantasy book written by a woman per month, are also in the description box down below, so go and check those out as well. And I hope I'll see you soon. Bye!